But how to manage change, that was the real issue. And so we went through an effort using GIS again, where we worked with a citizen task force, had 3 community workshops, and again we could break the nature of the geography, the landscape, into amenities, and people would be able to make choices based on where development would be best. What are the amenities that they wanted to preserve? Where are the areas that where change could take place, and where are areas that they wanted to preserve from an environmental so forth. And finally, this was then translated into diagrams that reflected what the community was saying in these community workshops, and finally into a combined area. And what it really just says that there's certain areas in terms of like Highway 169 going north, where development, certain sensitive land areas where development should have taken place. Most of the development ought to connect and tie in with the town of Zimmerman, which already had sewer and water and so forth. Well, this plan now then, the county is tying that into their comprehensive plan, and the township now is having a lot of discussions with Zimmerman, and they're going to go into a joint township city zoning, and to try to control and to kind of guide how development should take place over the next 30, 40 years, based on what the community's vision was for its own place, where it placed its values. And out of those values then is what this plan tried to suggest. Oops. And then that led to this project with the Minnesota Rural Partnership. Jane Leonard, I don't know if you know her, but she's been the executive director of that. She's taking a little hiatus. She's executive director of the Minnesota Sesquicentennial Commission right now. And but the Minnesota Rural Partnership is the only federally recognized rural group that represents the state in its entirety. And they have been having a series of summer conferences over the last 10 years. And so with them, we said, well, let's look at the state and try to think about what would the design of the state be like in 2058 if you had a chance to design it. And then secondly, what is the role of the University of Minnesota in help create that shape? That was kind of the basis. So this map here from 1895, and of course, I suppose this looks like this must be Houston right here, county, because I think this might be a little bit squished. But in 1895, really, that's and really earlier, but that's when the counties, that's when the townships, that's when the towns themselves were that whole government structure. And that decision-making process really extends even to this day. And so we have some townships which and counties which are undergoing great change. Other areas like up in Stevens County which are struggling just to have enough people there to maintain their quality of life. We worked with Big Stone County and Traverse County over here. Of course, been up in Roseville. And Stearns County. We've had discussions down in the whole southwest area. We're continuing right now along this stretch here from Redwood Falls to Marshall along the Redwood River. So there's even though this may not go ahead because we were hoping the McKnight Foundation would fund it, but our idea was to work with the various regions of the state through the 2002, 2008, and 2009. With culminating, at least in the middle of this whole thing, with a big charrette in May of this year, which is the 150th anniversary of the state. And to try to really, again, do what we did for Livonia Township, but do it on a whole statewide kind of basis. And so the thinking is that, well, it's really, might a map of Minnesota look more like this in 2058? where the counties and the townships still exist. We're not talking about changing anything. But when you look at the state with at least the 3 biomes, some people say there are 4 biomes. You've got the prairie grassland, you've got the deciduous forest, and the pine forest. And of course, as the glaciers came down, the glaciers weren't down in this part of the world, and that's why it is so uniquely different than some of the other areas. But as the glaciers melted, the rivers and the valleys, the Minnesota River, the Mississippi River, and we have these biomes that go, not biomes, but the continental divides. And we got water going this way, we got water going that way, we got water going this way. And so the state is really very, very interesting and very diverse. That the situation in the Southwest is quite different than up in the Northeast. And so that the idea is that the uniqueness of each region is defined, and that's an area that's still evolving. And this is just a little bit of a sidelight, but our center, when we first got it started, Bob Brunix, who was the provost at the time, now the president of the university, because of some efforts that were taking place, asked our center to begin a process of trying to define what the 7,800-acre site in Rosemont might be used for. It was the Gopher Ordnance Works in World War II, a place where they made ammunition for the Army. And in 1947, when the war ended, they stopped the construction, and it was all turned over to the university for $1 or something like that. So it's been sitting out there. Right on, it's within Dakota County, kind of in the center of Dakota County. It's a large chunk of land. The Flint Hills Resources is just to the northeast of that. And because of that large area, it's kind of been a block for a sprawl into Dakota County. So Dakota County maintains a lot of agricultural kind of connections in that area. Unlike some of the other areas, like in the Livonia Township is right up over here, and how this sprawl, we work with Wyoming Township right in here, and the impacts have been really quite enormous. Here's the ordnance works from 1945. If you've driven on 52 into the Twin Cities off of the west, you probably have seen these stacks. There's 2 groupings of them. The one on the east end was actually completed, and it was under it was working, and they were making ammunition for about 6 months. The second series and the second boiler plant was stopped construction when the war ended, and so you'll see the stacks, and one of them is cut off because they were building it, and the war ended. They stopped the construction the next day, and the reinforcing rods are still sticking up there. Very interesting. Which and some of these structures, some of these T-walls and things, are still standing there, and it's a very eerie landscape with all of these remnants of World War II history involved with it. But it's been used for a whole variety of things. Research and Outreach Center, about 2,300 acres, and so our involvement out there has been nurturing forward, and now the university, with the Regents' blessings, are moving very actively toward a development concept, and I serve on that management team. But our center is also developing a plan for this Vermilion Highlands. And some of you might remember that when the Minnesota Gopher football stadium, how it got funded was that the university transferred 2,800 acres of land here to the Department of Natural Resources, and in exchange, they provided funding for the football stadium. So this area, and along with a regional park, we're developing master plan. But this whole north area, 5,000 acres, will be developed as a new city, a sustainable city of 20 to 30,000 people, and connected into the greenway system and so forth. If you want to know what 7,800 acres look like, here it's superimposed on top of Minneapolis. Here's the Mississippi River, Nicollet Island. There's the Metro Dome. downtown area. And that's how big a piece of land that is. It's really quite enormous. And so we've been working on a number of things having to do with energy systems. To the degree we can do it, we'd like this to be a self-sufficient community, perhaps where we're using biomass and not from corn, but from switchgrass and other types of organic material to make electricity, liquid fuels. Flint Hills might become a part of that. There's some landfills up here where we can use a plasma gasification plant, which is something that's used in Europe to convert the landfill into energy. So there might be a whole bunch of stuff that's going on here in terms of universities' research is really informing the imprimatur, if you will, of what this community is like based on energy, environment, education, health, transportation, and interdisciplinary studies.